Before we get into the trenches of today's episode, I want to invite you to close your eyes. Very important note. If you are driving, please do not do that. And I want you to think of that thing that you have maybe had fear around starting or had hesitation around starting. And I want you to imagine that thing, think about it in all of its facets. And I want you to ask yourself, who will I be if I do this? And if the person that comes to mind is who you want to be, then you need to start. When you frame that question to yourself, it becomes very clear what you need to do to get there. You are no longer in this like scramble of thinking about every single aspect. Instead, you are so focused on that goal that you just envisioned in your mind that it's easier to get there.
Something so important about that concept is you were thinking future focused. When you are putting the future in your brain, you are subconsciously going to align with the behavior of that person, the even look of that person. When you're envisioning your future self, what do they look like? What are they doing every day? What kind of habits do they have? A lot of times when we overthink, we're thinking about past situations. And so when you sit down and ask yourself, who will I be if I do this? You're already putting yourself in the position of future thinking. And I think that can accelerate your growth so much faster than sitting in the thoughts of, why am I doing what I'm doing right now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, in that moment, when I asked myself that question, I was already her. I was already who I was becoming in that moment. And that also is very motivating to see that picture in your mind. And I think if you're trying to start something and you ask yourself that question and it's blurry, you don't see, I don't know if that's the thing you should start.
Right. 100%. If you see it so clearly,
yeah,
that's your sign right now.
Yeah, that's your passion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%. Welcome to Untitled,
a podcast and educational brand where the nostalgia of higher education meets the sharp edge of a corporate boardroom.
I'm Sophie.
And I'm Alex.
And together we deliver no BS insights for ambitious freelancers, corporate climbers, multi-hyphenates, and business owners.
By challenging the limits of a single title, we're here to empower you to redefine success.
And make your work work for you.
Class is in session. Okay, lesson 1 is no matter how hard you try, you will never have it all figured out. All you have control of is your willingness and commitment to begin.
I love this lesson.
Unfortunately, starting is just starting. There's no curriculum or accredited program you can take to be confident in yourself and be confident in starting.
Starting is a skill.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing right now.
I mean, even with Untitled, we are going to make mistakes here. We are going to not sound smart, maybe a few times in this episode even. But we are just starting.
Right.
So that's the point that we really want to make is you don't need to be committed to necessarily doing it perfectly. What you do need to be committed to, however, is starting.
Now let's dive into lesson number 2. I love this one. It is, don't underestimate the risks of doing nothing. There are risks to staying stagnant. And I'm not over here being like, let's go hustle culture, work harder, do better. But there is an element of awareness that needs to be present when you're considering the cost of inaction. It's not about pushing harder for the sake of it, but it's really about recognizing when staying in the same place is actually holding you back. And in that same breath, I want to be the first to admit that there have been so many times I've tricked myself into thinking that I'm doing something when I'm actually really doing nothing at all. I've said no to plans all the time, and it's because I know I need to stay in and do work. And then I stay in and do work, and I'm by my computer, and I'm on my computer, I'm quote unquote working, but I'm doing all this researching and planning, convincing myself I need to know more information to really actually start what I need to be working on. And that's actually a really sneaky kind of avoidance. It's one that initially feels productive, but it isn't actually moving you forward in the direction that you want to go. How do you personally, Alex, tell the difference between necessary research and then avoidance?
Yeah. I mean, it's a very fine line.
Yeah.
I want to stress how fine the line is, really. And if you are an entrepreneur, the line is even finer. So just beware there. I'm a huge believer in research and planning. I mean, we're here. And a quick sort of like hack, I hate that word, but a little trick to check this, I mean, you're really gut checking it, in my opinion, is to ask yourself the question, is this planning that I'm doing, is it in an effort to delay the discomfort with starting? Once you get into the habit of asking yourself that question, I mean, I don't know if you can tell, I love asking myself questions. But asking yourself questions really opens up a response, an
100%.
opportunity for you to respond internally.
And be honest with yourself about it.
Lesson number 3 is clarity doesn't come from thinking, it comes from doing. Whoa. Move first and your mind will catch up. Sometimes you just have to take an action without thinking about it. If you are somebody that really struggles to do that, you gotta find somewhere in the middle. The more time that you allow yourself to think is the more time that you allow yourself to doubt your next step. By just releasing that and surrendering it, you are going to be able to start a lot faster.
I'm going to be so honest. I'm so bad at this. I am an emotional girly, and I actually love that about myself, okay? But it definitely hinders me, especially when it comes to work and excelling my personal growth and starting new things. I get a lot of anxiety, and I have seen you firsthand have anxiety and push past it so well. And like for just from us working together so frequently. Whereas if I get, a little bit of anxiety or if I'm overthinking something, it could really consume me for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Truly. So how do you handle your moments? Because you're so good at it, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle moments when shutting off your emotions doesn't really feel possible?
Yeah, I grew up shutting off my emotions. Love that for me. And I have really had to work on regulating that, like coming from one end of the spectrum to the other. That's why I said that is because of that. But shutting off my emotions is like second nature to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so carrying that into my adult life, I was doing that on an enormous scale. I have really had to work on regulating that. But in those moments when I am having that anxiety, I recognize it for what it is. It's debilitating.
Mm-hmm.
I can choose in that moment to continue to be debilitated by it, knowing what will happen if I continue to be debilitated by it, or I can turn it off.
I think there's a fine line because feelings come up and you're meant to feel them, right? And if you continue shutting it off, then are you just waiting for it to come back again 10 times more? Like,
I personally think anxiety is not productive.
I agree.
I think there's a lot of feelings that you do need to allow.
Yeah.
And you do need to feel. And there's a lot of feelings that don't feel good that you also do need to feel.
Correct.
But anxiety is not one of them.
I love this take.
Maybe it's a hot take.
No,
Am I going to get dragged?
No, I actually think this is what
concerned.
the anxious girlies need to hear.
Okay, I'm concerned.
We're making it real. Like, no, this is a really good hot take. I think it is going to be a hot take for some people, but I think this is absolutely gold.
Yeah, most of these scenarios where we're feeling this like overwhelming sense of anxiety, we are okay. Our lives are not at risk.
One more tangent with anxiety is the definition of anxiety is fear of the future, right?
Yeah.
So start it. Like,
Yeah.
start what you're trying to do and recognize that it's really not that scary,
Yeah,
babe.
get it out of the future.
Get it out of the
It's in
future.
the now.
Exactly.
How can you have anxiety about it?
Exactly.
One of my favorite ways to do that, to take the moment from the future to bring it to the now, is the 3-2-1 method. Right now, Let Them by Mel Robbins, very, very popular and everybody's reading it. One of the coping strategies that Mel Robbins talks about is her 5-4-3-2-1 method. It's the same thing. This is a very standard coping strategy. And the point of it is to interrupt the thought process that you're having with feeling that anxiety or that resistance, and to help you replace it with action in that moment. So by doing this, you really take your emotions out of the driver's seat and you are able to make that decision versus everything that's going on in your mind. When I'm personally applying the 3-2-1 method or the 5-4-3-2-1, it's really was something that I'm having that resistance with, and I don't think about it. I just count down 3-2-1 and I do it. And that's it. It's very simple. It's very accessible. It's an accessible coping strategy. You don't need to overthink it. You don't need to remember it. We are just counting down.
I love that, especially when you're thinking about the emotional side. Emotions will paralyze you before you even begin. Trust me, I have experienced it so many times. And like we've said this whole episode so far, starting something requires momentum.
Yeah.
I love this example because I think a lot of people can relate to it. Think about when you have avoided cleaning your room, okay? It's something that you know you have to do and you've just been putting it off all day. Maybe it's a Sunday and you want to do a Sunday reset. You've been putting it off all day, but suddenly you start and you begin to feel yourself in flow. And you start folding laundry, you start cleaning the kitchen, and you realize that the hardest part was not the task itself, cleaning, it was overcoming the avoidance of just starting.
I think also just recognizing that avoidance, sure, it could keep you from something negative, but majority of the time that avoidance is keeping you from something positive. Lesson number 4 is success and unlimited resources are not exclusive. This is so big. I just want to say that you do have enough, whether you think you do or not. You have enough time, you have enough resources, you have enough space, confidence, clarity, talent. You have all of it to do what you want to start. Just FYI. Chances are that this thing, whatever it is that you want to start, doesn't need as much as you think it does. And this goes back to the overthinking and overcomplicating. It is natural for our minds when trying to resist to come up with excuses. One of the most common excuses that I hear personally from people is, oh, well, I don't have that. I don't have the time to do it. I don't have the money to do it. The list goes on. I promise that by starting with what you can, you will start sooner. You will scale whatever that is leaner, and you will make smarter business decisions. I mean, we could find some stats here about businesses that started with heavy hitter investors, so much money in the bank, and where they're at now. And we could also compare it to businesses that started very scrappy, startup, and where they're at as well. And what you're going to see is there's no correlation.
I think a really big common thing I hear a lot is I don't have enough time. I don't have time. And a few years ago, I had a client who said something to me that completely changed my perspective on this overall lesson. She was the CHRO at a big pharmaceutical company, and now she's a leadership coach and coaches executives all over the place. And we were working on scripting her content, and she really wanted to talk about this concept that you have enough time, you have enough resources. But specifically with time, she said that when you say you don't have enough time, what you're really saying is that you're choosing to prioritize different things. And that's okay if you want to choose to prioritize different things, but don't say, I want to do this, but I don't have time.
Yeah,
You're
don't
just not
use it as an
prioritizing
excuse.
it, right?
Yeah.
I want to say that no one just has time. You make time for what you want to prioritize. You can't control every external factor, but you can control what you prioritize with the time that you do have.
We all have different perspectives. So, yes, someone else having more money, having more time from what we can see, maybe our perspective is that it would be easier for them. But I kind of want to challenge you to think of how it could be harder for them because they have the perspective that they have and not yours. It's really all about perspective at the end of the day.
And this brings us to lesson number 5, which is actually a concept. It's called the minimum daily requirement. How you can actually get started without having time be a barrier is this concept of a minimum daily requirement. Make it something extremely easy to do that if you don't do it, it would be kind of silly and self-sabotaging for you not to do, but also make it meaningful. My favorite way to do this is 15 minutes a day. If you're trying to start a business, for example, don't overwhelm yourself saying, oh, I'm going to work on this for 2 hours for the next 2 months. You're not going to do that. You're never going to do that. Sorry. But if you work on it for 15 minutes a day, if you have a minimum daily requirement, my MDR is 15 minutes a day, it makes it a lot less overwhelming and more manageable.
I think this also creates such a container for you to work within. And the more time that you give yourself to do specific tasks, the more time it's going to take. So I love the 15 minutes. I love the 15 minutes because if all you get done is, let's say you're building a website and you are writing copy, if all you get done is one paragraph and you get one paragraph done every single day,
that's
you'll have a website.
Win. That's a
you
win,
will have
baby.
A website.
Yes. And to that point, something I really love to do once I figure out my MDR and what it is, I set a calendar reminder 6 weeks later to check in with myself.
I love that.
This does not have to be business related. This could be any goal that you want to achieve. I recently did this back in November of 2024 to get my forearm stand. I'm super into yoga and stretching, and I set a MDR, 15 minutes a day of intentional stretching and strength training to be able to hold my forearm stand. If you don't know what a forearm stand is, it's like a headstand, but you're on your forearms, okay? I started doing it for 15 minutes a day. I set a calendar reminder 6 weeks later. And at the time I was in South Africa and I get the notification and I was like, holy shit, I got my forearm stand 2 weeks after I started doing my MDR. So I literally forgot about it, but the calendar reminder keeps you checked in.
Yeah.
I just love it. I love it. And the key is to make it easy. So not super overwhelming, but sometimes it's not easy.
Yeah. The point of it is it's very simple.
Right. That's a better word.
So simple. And there's still going to be days that you wake up and you're like, shit, I have to do my MDR. So we love MDR. Okay. Lesson number 6 is to be kind to your ideas. I am such a mean girl to my ideas. I'm not even going to lie. Every single time I have an idea, mean girl comes in. She's like, that's not good enough. That's not fun enough. Nobody's going to think that's cool. Why would you do that? You're a loser. Like, that is actually what's happening in my mind. And what I want you to notice is how mean you can be to your own ideas. And if you're not mean to your ideas, great. I love that you got positive self-talk happening. But if you have had negative self-talk, then that's what it looks like. That's what it is. It's negative self-talk. And a strategy that helps me in the process of starting something to eject from that mean girl persona is to imagine my friend is starting it. It's not me, Alex. It's my friend, Alex. And I'm not going to look at my friend, Alex, and say, yeah, your idea is shit. I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be encouraging, and I'm going to get to work.
Alex, I kind of like it when you tell me my ideas are shit. Like sometimes I do like that. Like you're like, that actually looks fucking horrible. I do like it when you tell me that. And then I'm like, okay, word. Understood.
Yeah.
But really great point about positive self-talk. I do agree
Hey,
with
I
that.
mean, I think there's objective and subjective
Okay,
though.
cool. But I think a lot of people have these negative self spirals because of fear, and the fear you have is really just your brain's sometimes misguided way of trying to protect you. But acknowledging it without letting it dictate your actions is key. Something so comforting about fear, it is a universal experience, especially the fear of being perceived and letting yourself be seen. It takes so much practice to get over that. And it takes courage to put yourself in situations that might spark that fear to actually get over it.
Yeah.
That's a really important point, because that courage, that confidence doesn't come before you take action at all. It comes from taking action and actually putting yourself in the position to experience that fear and get over it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's self-trust.
Yeah. I have a really kind of funny example about this. One time I was with this boy. This was like our third or fourth time hanging out, but I liked him. I thought it was cute. I thought it was fun. And we were together, and he was on my phone looking for a photo on my camera roll. I don't know how I gave him camera roll privileges the third or fourth time of us hanging out, but here we are. He's like looking for a photo of both of us on the camera roll, and he comes across a video that I made for TikTok. And I have been creating content since I could speak, but I've also experienced so many people say horrible things, making fun of me for content creation. And in the moment when I saw that he saw that video, I felt this wave of embarrassment, like I had been caught doing something so cringy, and I was terrified of what he thought. And it's not like I wasn't proud of my content. I love my content. I am proud of what I'm making. But the fear of how I was being perceived hit me so much harder than expected. And it just kind of reminded me of how deeply ingrained our fear of judgment actually is. And I recognize that this is a hurdle that I'm still overcoming, right? I'm acknowledging it, but I'm not letting it take action over me, because it's okay. And it's honestly inevitable to have these moments where you're having negative self-talk, self-judgment, fear, insecurity. That is all normal. So recognize it and acknowledge that it's something you need to work on, but don't let it dictate your actions.
Yeah, it's never going to go away either. Everything that we're talking about today, you are never going to get to a point where you don't feel these things.
100%. And with the note about your fear of being perceived, remind yourself as many times as you need that you are not responsible for the version of you that exists in somebody else's brain. You will never have control over that. Yeah. And that is not your responsibility, but you are responsible for the version of you that exists in your own mind. So if you're showing up authentically, doing what you want to do, treating yourself with kindness, the version of yourself that you have in your head should be good. Yeah. And that's how you should move forward. And that's how you should really start whatever you want to start. And this is going to be a shock. Lesson number 7 is practice really does make perfect-ish.
I'm kind of a serial procrastinator. And that tendency really comes from my perfectionism, or being a recovering perfectionist. And talk about taking the energy out of starting. Nothing takes the energy or the wind out of your sails like perfectionism. And something that's really helped me get past that is reframing things as practice. We're not performing. We're just practicing. Just that simple reframe has changed the game for me when starting new things. Everyone has their own starting process. And if you don't, this is something I really encourage you to get clear with what works for you. Because once you have a process that works for you, starting it just gets so much easier. If you don't have a starting process and you want to work on creating one, my biggest tip to doing that is to start small things every day. When I say that, I actually mean very small things. If you want to start writing a book, wake up in the morning, write one sentence. That's it. You don't erase the sentence. You don't edit the sentence. You write one sentence and you move on.
So maybe your minimum daily requirement
It's just the
one sentence.
Yeah, I love that. Finding ways, small ways to flex the same mental muscles around starting and it just being framed as practice is really important. For me personally, I love doing a brain dump every single day. This, for me, helps me to get comfortable with doing something without necessarily excelling at it. That's something I have a really hard time detaching from. A way that this shows in my life is everything that I start, I am constantly trying to find ways that I'm going to be productive with that thing I start. Every hobby turns into something that like I want to monetize. I don't know if you've ever been in that loop. That is a sure sign that you're having a really hard time seeing things as just a start versus trying to find a finish to them. I've been putting into practice a lot recently, also with my own social media. I've seen Sophie just killing it on social, and it really inspired me to step up my game with my own personal content because I'm so used to working other people's businesses.
Yeah.
And it's really important to also prioritize your own personal brand. And so I've been doing this with social. It's practice. I'm just creating a video and I'm posting it.
Alex's videos are so good.
But I'm not attached.
I drool at them.
But I'm not attached to them being good.
And they're fire.
Okay. Well, the point is crushed now because Sophie's like, they're actually amazing.
I'm sorry. They are.
No, really remove that additional pressure and expectation around excelling. What you're doing is just practice. And the more that you practice starting, the easier it's going to become to take even bigger action in starting down the line.
Bam. And to help you actually start, we put together a free homework resource linked in the episode notes. It's short, it's thoughtful, and it's really designed to help you move from overthinking into action.
You'll find multiple choice questions to test what stuck, and one of my personal favorites, the Be Kind to Your Ideas exercise.
Plus, there's a little bit of extra credit for you overachievers. It's our MDR challenge, where we help you set a minimum daily action, track it, and actually build momentum without burning out. You can even print this tracker or screenshot it into your notes app. If you loved this episode or if it got you thinking, send it to somebody else who might need to hear it. And we would also love it if you guys left us a review or even just a message to say hi. We are truly reading every single one.
And whatever you do, start now.